I'm going to actually show you how to replace the headset bearings. Now, if you took this to a shop and asked them to put new bearings in, it'd probably cost you about 30 to 40 pounds. It only takes you about 5 minutes. As long as you just follow the system that I'm going to show you, you'll be able to do it in no time at all. First thing we're going to do is take the wheel out. It's really important. Let's release the brake, undo the front quick release, and just get rid of that out of the way because we're not going to need that till the end. Okay, the next thing I'm going to do is I actually need to take off the front brake, okay, because we need to be able to drop the forks out of the frame. So to do this, there's an Allen key bolt positioned at the back of the fork crown, and we're simply just going to undo that, unscrew it all the way, pop that out. Now, all good professional mechanics will tell you, always put the nut back on the bolt because it saves you losing it on the floor. Okay, so that's great. We can just leave that there. So we need to actually drop the fork out of the frame. So that's at the moment being clamped by the stem and the top cap. Next thing we're going to do is remove the top cap. And then on this particular stem, I need a 4mm Allen key to undo the stem bolt. That'll vary depending on what manufacturer you use. Okay, so before I pull the stem off, I'm going to make sure I keep hold of the fork. Yeah, lift the stem off. Don't drop it, just let that hang down carefully and then you don't damage the cables. Okay, now it's important to remember, if you've got spacers on the steerer tube, make sure you remember the order that they're in. Now these ones are all different colours, so it's going to be quite easy for us to remember. So take these off in the order that you want to go back on, and then simply if you just push the forks down, yeah, the fork should drop out, and that's fine. So we can just put those to one side for now. Now we've got the forks out of the way, we need to deal with the real business end of what's going on, and that's the actual bearing. Now, this particular bike is what they call integral, which basically means that the actual cup of the bearing is integrated into the actual frame. So you can't actually see the bearing when they're inside. Okay, that's what the bearing looks like. And the first thing to note is that it's got a number on it. Now that number is absolutely unique to that bearing. So again, if you take the bearing out and you're unsure of what you need, take it along to the store, make sure you got the bearing with the number on, and make sure you get the same number bearing to go back in, otherwise it won't fit. Okay. The other thing to take note of is the fact that one side is square and one side's got an angle. And when you replace the bearing, on the top the angle faces downwards, yeah, and on the bottom the angled part of the bearing faces upwards. Okay. Now on this particular bike, both those are the same size, so it doesn't matter which one you put in. On other bikes, sometimes the lower one is bigger, but you just need to check with your own different manufacturers. If this was the new bearing, I'm going to position the bearing, slide it onto the fork, as so, and then making sure I don't tangle any of the cables up. Yeah, I'm going to slip the fork back into the frame. Again, making sure not to trap any cables. Okay, so that's both the bearings in position. The next thing I'm looking for is this thing, which is a split washer. And that basically has got a chamfer on it, and when you compress that, that's basically what tightens up the headset. So we're going to slide that down, pop that into position, and then the top cap, which is the thing that keeps all the dirt and muck off the bearings. Again, make sure you get that on the right way up. And that's usually got a rubber seal, so you have to just push it on quite firmly. Slide that down the tube, and there you are, that holds everything in position. So now that's back there, we now need to reassemble everything. So we need to put our headset spacers back on. If you remember when we took them off, there was a blue one, two silver ones, and another blue one. And then I'm going to slide the stem back onto the steerer tube. It's really important to make sure you keep hold of the fork leg, because you don't want the forks just to drop out on the floor. And then last thing, I'm going to put the top cap back in. So I'm going to sit that on the top. Okay. And then using my 5mm Allen key, I'm just going to tighten that up a bit. Now it's really important at this stage not to get too carried away and tighten the stem up. You need to do that later once you've reconnected the brake and the front wheel so that you can line everything back up once the bike is on the floor. So once you've got to that stage, at this point you want to reconnect the front brake. So undo the bolt, refix the caliper back to the fork, slip the bolt in from the back, and again using my 5mm Allen key, we'll just tighten that up. Okay, that's great. And lastly, on the work stand, we're just going to pop the front wheel back in again. Okay, so for the next bit, we need to take the bike out of the stand and put it down on the floor. The easiest thing is actually to sling your leg over the bike. Just make sure that the stem and handlebars are in line so that it's nice and straight when you're going to steer. Okay, now that's still got a little bit of play in it, so we need to tighten up the headset. Now, I haven't tightened these bolts, so what I'm going to do here is I'm going to tighten the top cap a little bit more. I'm going to pull the front brake, okay, and that's got rid of all the play in the bearings. Now what I'm going to do is I'm happy that the stem and the front wheel are all in line. I'm going to tighten these bolts up, and that'll actually clamp the whole thing in position. So that's good. And then finally, because we've taken the brake off, I'm going to make sure that the brake's in the correct position. That's good. And if you just give it a little bounce, just to check there's no rattles, we're good to go. You just save yourself about £40 there, as a bike shop would charge you for about an hour's labour to do that job.